All right, so today we have the wonderful Shannon Reeves. So as we get started and settled in, just a few housekeeping things here for us to go through. So as mentioned, you will be muted for this. So how to ask questions is use that question and answer function. So with that, you're able to see in the Zoom bar at the bottom of it, it has Q&A. So if you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to ask them through that function, and I'll either type away or I'll interrupt Shannon and just kind of have a conversation about it. So the more questions, the more of a conversation it is, and the more engaged that we have, more engagement that we have, the happier it makes us. And it is raining in Vancouver right now, so we could definitely use some extra smiles with that engagement. As well as we are on the unceded and ancestral territory of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh nations that has been stewarded them by Tam Memorial, since Shannon and I are both in the Vancouver region, as well as just making sure to ask questions. And if you have to leave at any point and come back, this session is being recorded so that we will be able to send it to you after. And again, so I'll introduce our speaker here. So Shannon, or the absolute legend of fundraiser here, is going to be going through this. So I'll let Shannon go through it. And she's our copywriter, digital crowdfunding specialist, and overall MVP. So Shannon, I'll turn it over to you to get started here.
Thank you, Campbell. That was a lovely introduction. I appreciate it. Little applause for Campbell, everybody. All right, and if you're wondering what we look like, those are our pretty faces. Probably a little more drenched here today because, as Campbell mentioned, we are in Vancouver and we are well known for our rain, and it is pouring out there today. So, like he said, all the questions, we love questions. They make us smile because it means that we're helping you. But what are we going over today? So this webinar is all about campaign storytelling, because it's important, because this is how you connect emotionally with your crowd. So this is what's going to help you with success on your campaign. And you might hear a little whiny kitty in my background. I apologize for that. Sorry, whiny kitty. But this is what we're going to go over today. Why is your campaign story so critical? And I will go over in detail the 7 components of a campaign story and just some tips on the creative process. I am a writer. I'm an attempted author. I'm going to say attempted author for now. And I know that writing is not for everybody. So I'm going to do what I can to go over some just short tips on the creative process that I think will help you get through it if writing is not your favorite thing in the world. And I don't blame you. Every writer, every good writer, every not good writer has wanted to throw their computer off the balcony at some point. So don't worry, you're not the only one. Ella, very needy kitty today. So, why is your campaign story so critical? Basically, to explain this, we need to go back all the way to the beginning of human time. I was going to say human time, back when we were still hunter gatherers and our main focus was survival. So, sitting and listening to a story doesn't really seem like a good thing to do when you're constantly you're constantly needing to make sure that you're protected, because we had a lot of predators that were going after us, and being quiet in a group could usually be a good thing because you needed to protect yourself and your immediate family. So why would we evolve the need and the desire to listen to stories? And basically what evolved was this little guy. This is dopamine. This is the good feeling hormone. So this evolved because we gained something from listening to stories, and what we gained was knowledge. So just picture this. Your hunting buddy, your brother, sister, father, cousin, whatever, they came back from a hunt and they have this amazing story. And their story is all about how they came across a bear, and that bear wanted to kill him, and he took a club and he beat that bear in the head, and then he ran into a crevice of a cave or whatever, and he stayed there for 2 days. Basically, us listening to that story elicits dopamine for 2 reasons. Not only because we're happy that our friend is alive, but also because we are learning what to do or what not to do in case we're in the same situation. So if you're curious, if you ever come across a bear, please do not beat it over the head. That is a very bad thing to do. There are much better things to do. And we have bears in our backyards up here. So we know exactly what not to do. And hitting a bear in the nose with a club is number one not to do. But if we're sitting and listening to our friend's story, that means that we're not paying attention to what might be around us, like a cougar who also wants to eat us. Back in the day, there were a lot of things that wanted to eat us. So we needed that very important reason, this dopamine hormone, to keep us wanting to listen to stories. So again, we were happy that our friend was alive, but we are also learning what we need to do in order to survive that same situation. So what does that mean for digital fundraising? Basically, that means two things. One, we want to elicit an emotion to drive donations to the solution to your specific problem. So by, eliciting that dopamine hormone, that's going to entice people to donate and possibly donate again. But this is also important for brand recognition and loyalty. So imagine you tell a really great story to your supporters and that dopamine is released in their systems. They're going to remember that the next time they see your name or your organization brand or whatever story you're trying to tell and associate with, they're going to remember that. They might not remember the exact wording or the content, but they're going to remember how they felt. And this is good advice for meeting new people as well. And job interviews, et cetera, et cetera. People aren't necessarily going to remember what you talked about or the content of your stories, but they're going to remember how you made them feel. And if you make them feel good, they're going to remember that. So that's why it's really important in digital fundraising to make sure that we connect emotionally with our readers, our supporters. And how do we do that? We do that with 7 components that we've created through over 12 years and literally thousands of campaign stories. We've figured out what works. Now I put this little bit in here. It's more what you would call guidelines than actual rules, because there's no writer in the world who would tell you that there's only one way to write, one way to do something. There's always multiple ways to do something. So if you want to take your own personality, your own ideas into this, by all means, please do. These are guidelines on what we believe works best, most effectively for a campaign story, but that doesn't mean it's the only way. So before we get into the details, I'm also going to go through an example for you. And in this example, we are going to pretend that we are a dog shelter that are trying to bring stray dogs off the streets and make them adoptable for people. So to start, you want to start with an agreeable opening statement, rhetorical question, a one-liner that is agreeable. And we want to do this because you never know what frame of mind your readers are going to be in when they get to your campaign, because you're on the internet. That's a given. You are on the internet, and the internet elicits a lot of different emotions, and not all of them are good. You don't know how your readers got to your campaign. Maybe before that, they were looking at an email from a family member that they would have rather not be in contact with. They're not going to be in a great mood. That is not the mood you want them to be in when they read your story. So what you want to do is you want to ground them. You want to bring them into your story. And the best way to do that is to get them to agree with you. So you do this with some sort of agreeable opening statement, or I say rhetorical question because rhetorical questions are really good for getting people thinking. So in our example, I wrote down, where would we be without man's best friend? Dogs are an important part of human culture. They are our companions, our confidants, sometimes even our eyes and ears. Now, even if you don't like dogs, you can agree with this. Dogs are important in human lives, and they might not be important in your life, but they're very important in a lot of other people's lives. And we cannot disagree with that. This is a fact. The next thing to do is to clearly state the problem you are trying to solve. This might seem a given. However, I talk to a lot of people who think that being generic about their ask is good enough. It often is not. I would say it's mostly not. People don't want to give to a superfluous cause where they don't know where the money is going to. So the best thing you can do to combat this is clearly state your problem. So with our example, hundreds of stray dogs roam the streets of New York City. Some have never known a home. These animals are not only lonely, exposed to the elements, and hungry, but they spread disease, pests, and parasites to humans. So I wrote this section for the purpose of grabbing the attention of as many people as I can. So I don't want to only grab the attention of people who love dogs and want to see them off the streets because they feel bad for the dogs. I want to grab the attention of people who might not like dogs or care necessarily about a dog getting a home. They just want them off their streets. So for those people, I say they do spread disease, they spread pests and parasites to humans. So this is going to attract the attention of those other people who might not care about the lives of the dogs themselves, even though Campbell and I don't necessarily understand those people because we both love dogs. The next thing is to clearly describe your solution to the problem. And again, don't be superfluous. Don't say, we want to get all these dogs off the streets. How are you going to get these dogs off the streets? What is your plan? How exactly are you using these funds? So our shelter is determined to take in and match every dog we can with their ideal owner. We have an app that will match dog and owner personality profiles to ensure each dog finds a forever home. It's like online dating for meeting your perfect dog. And no, I don't think this exists. If it does, great, that's awesome. If it doesn't, feel free to create it. Give me creative, compensation or something like that. And that's not the only part where you're going to describe your solution to the problem. So this bit is where it gets a little bit confusing. You want to identify the gap between the problem and your solution outside of the funds that you need. You are on a digital fundraising platform. It's a given that you're asking for funds, but what are those funds going to go towards? So in this example, what we need is to get these dogs ready to be adopted because we can't just go grab them off the street and then shove them into a home. They're not going to be ready. So before our dogs can be adopted, we need to ensure they're ready. That means they need to be spayed or neutered, have their shots. They might require extra vet treatment, especially if they've been on the streets, specialized training to reduce or fix reactive behavior. And most likely, at the very least, they need a bath and a haircut. So this is what the funds are going towards. This is not the ultimate solution. This is what's getting the dogs to the solution. So that is the gap. And the next bit is to describe how the donor is the hero of your story and can help you save the world by trying to utilize units of impact. So this is taking that gap and applying a monetary value to it. So sometimes this can be easier for some campaigns than others. With this campaign, it's actually quite easy. So our dogs need champions. Your contribution, excuse me, your contribution will change an animal's life for the better by taking him off the street and into a home where he'll be happy, healthy, comfortable, and loved. So here's a wish list of items needed. So this is a list of fees that might go towards taking a dog from the streets and making him adoptable. So like I said, this can be pretty easy. A $10 donation, treats for a week, all the way up to $500, which will cover adoption fees, probably the spaying and neutering of that dog, possibly some training. They're tangible things, and you might need to get a bit creative to get your units of impact. They don't have to be tangible things. They can be an experience. They can be an emotion even. There was one campaign that I worked on where people were trying to bring mobile devices into senior resident homes during COVID to help them connect with their families. And they didn't need one mobile device per family or per person. So what they did was they connected units of impact to the experience that the people would have, so $25 is a half an hour tea over a Zoom session with their grandchildren, all the way to $200 is them being able to see their grandchild's graduation ceremony in real time because they had great video and sound, etc. That kind of idea. So you might need to get extremely creative with this. And if you're really stuck, don't worry, we will give you lots of resources as well as our contacts for help later on. Number 6 is to lay out your quid pro quo. What are you going to give your supporters in exchange for their contribution? And this might seem like an actual tangible gift. And maybe you do have a tangible gift. Maybe you have swag, for every $50, we'll give you a t-shirt. That's great. But what we're talking about here are updates. So what I wrote down is when you choose a dog to donate to, you will have the exclusive chance to follow along in his or her progress. We will update you with how they're progressing in their training, even giving you tips on how you can stop your beloved pup's less than desirable behaviors. So the updates that we are promising to give here are a continuation of the story that we're starting, because the story doesn't end with the donation you get from your supporter. It ends when that dog is in a home and happy in his home, and we know he's staying there forever. So you're not only going to give updates on how you've used the funds that your supporters give, but updates can be anything from tangible content, like maybe bios on the beneficiaries you're trying to help or the volunteers that are doing it. They can be advice and tips on your specific area of interest. Basically, they can be anything of value that is not asking for more funds. An update is not another ask. An update is something of value to give your supporters. And the last thing, the most important thing, is the call to action. Now, there's actually 2 calls to action. Number 1 is donate. That's the obvious one. Number 2 is to share. A supporter's impact is worth a lot more than what they can give. It's about who they can inspire as well. Because even if I only have the funds available to give you $10, I might be able to share this campaign to my network and inspire $1,000. So you don't only want to ask for the donate, you want to ask for the share. And that's the most important part that so many people forget to do. This is crowdfunding. This digital fundraising is essentially crowdfunding. And crowdfunding works by sharing. So make sure you ask for that share. If you want, you can copy this exact line right here. You're going to get this recording, and you're also going to get a story worksheet, spoiler alert, and it will have this line in it, except for the pups, unless you have pups that you're trying to help. Feel free to use this, but I give you my full permission to steal this. Okay, lastly, we're going to talk about a guide to the creative process. So number 1, spoiler, use a template. So in this template, I have written down every single step. I think I smushed in quid pro quo and call to action together for 6 steps, but that's okay. I've even written some examples and use this template to work through each step, 6 or 7 steps. So this will help you compartmentalize your ideas and make it a bit more easy for you. Sorry, my dog is whining in the background. He's being a little distracting, even though he has a super awesome treat. So sorry if I'm being a little bit stuttery. Number 2 is to brainstorm. So use this template and brainstorm a bunch of different ideas for this template, for this worksheet. So take each step. If you have help, if you have colleagues or other volunteers to help you, get in a room and sit and focus on each individual step and write down everything you need to, and then pick the best one, or, smush the best ones together. That's the best way to get out all of your ideas and figure out which is going to work well. And then you're going to take all of those ideas and you're going to smush them into your first draft. So you want to literally I'm sorry, Campbell, see if anyone has any questions, and I need to deal with this poor little pup. All right. Sorry, everyone. These are the downsides of working at home, is you have kids and you have pets and you have everyone who still needs your attention. Okay, so first draft, you are going to take every bit from this point and you are going to work it together into a tangible story, and try to put in, connecting sentences from each part into the next, just to make it cohesive and see if it works well. This is your first draft. Don't worry about getting it perfect right now, because the first thing you're going to do is edit for clarity. So that's when you're going to read through everything and see if you can find any inconsistencies, make sure it flows nicely, and then try to take out any words that you don't need. These stories should be a lot shorter than you think. They should only be between 500 and 750 words, because we don't have a whole lot of attention span on the internet. So we definitely need to make sure that our story is quick and grabbing. So do your best to take away sentences and words that you don't need. And the best way to do that is to take them away and see if the sentence and the paragraph still make sense. If it does, you don't need that word, you don't need that sentence. And then you want to have someone else edit for grammar and spelling. This person does not need to work for your company or organization. They don't need to have anything to do with this campaign. They just need to be somebody else, because what happens when we have been working on a story for so long is that our brain will skip over the filler words, the ands, the thes, the et ceteras. And I'm sure you've seen those, I forget how to say it, those, memes on the internet where the first letter and the last letter of a word are correct, but they jumble the middle letters, but your brain can still read it. So that's your brain saying that it sees things that it doesn't really. So when you've been working on a story for a really long time, your brain is going to skip over words and not notice that they're spelled wrong, because you're so used to looking at that story that it's just kind of glazing over. I've read and reread and spell checked and edited documents that I've written, and still other people have found spelling mistakes that were incredibly obvious. It's kind of crazy how our brains work. So that's why this is important, is have someone else edit for grammar and spelling. And you absolutely need to add in pictures and videos. And you need to do this because not everyone wants to read your story. Not everyone is going to read your story. And if you have a video, a 1 to 2 minute video, then that is the best way to quickly grab someone's attention. And if you don't say every aspect in your video, you've at least grabbed their attention, and then they might read your story if there's something else that they're curious about. So your video does not have to be very long, and it does not have to be professional. You can use pictures and videos that you've taken from your phone, and you can also use a free video editor to put them together, throw on some music. You can even use their stock videos and photos if you need some clips to make things a little bit more enticing. It's not very hard. And these free video software or editing softwares, they are free, but you need to be okay with their watermark on your video. If you're not okay with their watermark on your video, then you might want to get a basic package. They're not usually that expensive for a basic package. If you only need like maybe 2 to 3 videos a year, it might be about $100 a month, $150 a month. American, but there's tons out there. I don't even know if I have suggestions for you. There's Animoto, there's Lumen 5, there's a bunch of other ones. I get ads in my YouTube videos all the time for different ones because I use video editors so much. There's a plethora out there, so just go and figure out your favorite one. And I'm going to give you an example of a video that I created for a campaign. And I created this video using nothing but images from their website and their Facebook page and a couple of stock videos that were available in the editing software that I use. And this link never works. So we're going to go up here. And the video part itself might be a little iffy because this is over Zoom, but hopefully you get the idea. There you go. That video is less than a minute long. It gives the general idea of our story. And that's actually a video for a campaign that has micro projects. So one big campaign with, I think that one had 6 sub campaigns under it. So even if you have a big story, you can still create a video. And this is a video that is meant to be shared. So shared on Instagram, TikTok, through text, whichever, but it's also a video that you can put on the campaign itself. And you're already on the campaign and people get the gist of it. If they want to learn more, great. If they don't need to learn more, they can contribute. So pictures, your pictures, if you put pictures on, you can use stock video and photos in your video if you need, but if you have pictures, please make them your own. That's the best way if people don't watch your video, to use pictures to connect with your supporters. Make sure they're your own. Forward. Okay. So this webinar actually isn't very long. It's all about those 7 steps of storytelling and the writing process. So the content itself isn't very deep, but there's probably a lot of questions that you might have, if not now, then later on. If you need help right away with your story, you can type SOS in the chat box and Kemble will reach out to you, get your contact information, and we can schedule a meeting with himself, myself, other coaches, angry puppy. And you can also go to our fundraiser hub. Oh, tiny little dog. You can also go to our fundraiser hub, and this hub is a free space for you to go and use resources to help you with your campaign. You only have to sign in and get a login if you want to join the forum discussions, but all of the toolkits, the recorded webinars, the Ask Me Anythings where you hop on and you join Kemble for an hour. At any point, you can hop on and ask any question that you want. It doesn't have to be about the platform. It can be about fundraising in general. But this is where to go if you have tons of questions about your campaign, is the fundraiser hub. So it's just fundraiser.com/fundraiser hub. Again, you will get this recording, so you don't need to worry about writing that down now. But this is the spot to go to for all of the questions. But obviously you can ask us as well. So you can ask us in the chat right now. You can email us at support@fundraiser.com. We're always here for you to answer questions. And speaking of questions, does anyone have any?
Doesn't look like we have any at the moment, but what you can do is raise your hand and we can unmute you, because I know sometimes for sure with myself, it's a little difficult to kind of think about questions or how to type them. So you can raise your hand, or you can go ahead and use the question and answer function. We'll get to you.
The tiny little Yorkie is angry at the cat. Inter office battles here we got going on today. A fundraiser.
Yeah, it's funny. Shannon has the small dog, the Yorkie, and I have the Belgian Malinois / German Shepherd mix, who's 130 pounds compared to about 3 pounds, and he's
Probably.
just hanging out, being a good little guy, just not shouting at all.
I feel the need to say that this is not my dog. I am dog sitting at the moment. I love all dogs, but Yorkies are not my favorite, especially after this week. They have such high-pitched little barks. Okay, well, if there are no questions, great. But if you think of them, don't worry. We're always here to help you. Thank you so much for being here today and your patience with my fuzzy little distractions. And I hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks so much, Catherine. On the next one.